And that's why Martin Luther said that this book is a piece of straw, because it doesn't teach about theology. It doesn't talk about resurrection. But what we know is that these things must have not been important, because in documents such as Q, in documents such as the Gospel of Thomas, and what they were sourced from as a common source sayings, there is no resurrection. These are the earliest strata of writings that we have. There's no resurrection. It shows, even if the resurrection did happen hypothetically, it was not important for these communities. When James was writing, it clearly was not important for his community. When Mark was writing, because Mark finishes in chapter 16, verse 9, yeah, it did not have any resurrection. It was just an empty tomb. The woman's left and they told no one. But then afterwards, someone forged the ending of Mark, which is later appended to it. In Mark, it clearly shows there's a community who did not think it was too important to have. Are you still recording? Huh? No, it's good. It's good. Do you see the way he replies?
Man, he's on the roll.
Do you see the way he replies? Like, obviously, like he speaks to me like.
Carry on.
Why do you speak to me like that?
Carry on. Don't. Why do you allow yourself to be distracted? You was on the roll.
Yeah, no, you've been implying.
Don't be sidetracked.
Yeah. So there are books that early church fathers argued about, early communities argued about. There were compilations to this day. The Protestants and the Catholics have different amounts of books in it. So we can't just say simply there was a unanimous decision that these are all of the books of the Bible. It never was like that. It never has been like that. And some extra material just for food for thought if you want. What do you want to say?
No, put the cream on the cake.
You know, there's a philosopher called Seneca. Yeah. Now he was a famous philosopher. Now people want to know, like, if Paul's writings are so famous, then how come that philosophers like Seneca don't know about Paul? You know what happened? Letters were forged from Paul to Seneca and Seneca to Paul in order to boost the credibility of Paul, to show that he interacted with philosophers of his age. But the reality, these are forged writings. And we know this because we've got many computerized methods of detection, such as stylistics, for example. It measures the length of sentences, because when you technically, when you write, some people, for me, can go on and write a long sentence, 40 words per sentence. Other people just stick to 10 lines, 10 words a sentence. I use punctuation different from how you use punctuation. Michael said, you said in a video that Paul fell out with the disciples. I'm not sure if I did. It wasn't a big thing for me. But I said it's unusual because I don't use that language. But I can see a possibility if I had read something, then I regurgitate it. So I give him that. But I question him if he really said that. Because it is the same thing how we can determine Paul's writings are Paul's writings or they're not his writing. Stylistics, corpus linguistics, the study of history, where he was, when it was written. And yeah, so going back to your question, there was never unanimity or consensus. Early scholars, later scholars, modern scholars. My man George.
So I'm going to be a Muslim from now on? Do what you're going to do?
No, but you ask me a question. Forget about this.
Thank you. That was a general overview of a lot of things. So, first of all, no one's denying there was no arguments. No one's denying there was no people interpret like Marcion. For example, for example, Marcion. There was like the Jehovah's Witnesses, what they believe the what they call the Aryans. There were many groups that were trying to interpreting it their way, and there were arguments. So of course, what the Muslims do, or scholars, alleged scholars like Bart Ehrman, which is I don't even consider him as a scholar, to tell the truth, all right, because he's been so debunked so many times, right, and he's lied.
But there's many. There's Bruce Metzger, F.F. Bruce, Dan Wallace.
These are all modern scholars.
No, Dan Wallace is very conservative.
There's many scholars.
Don Wright.
You're going through all these Western scholars. Have you been to the Eastern Orthodox?
No, I haven't.
Have you been in the monasteries?
No, I haven't.
St. Catherine's? Have you been in Mount Sinai? Have you been to Mount Athos? Have you seen how the early church put the Bible together? Who put the Bible together?
Who did?
How did they put the Bible together? 1 minute. Listen, let me do my role.
Do your role, man. Do your thing.
Of course there were arguments. Marcion, for example, just before he died, he admitted it was wrong what he was doing, separating the New Testament, the New Testament God with Old Testament God. All right? Go and see how he's been debunked on YouTube.
I don't think he recanted from that position. He died on that position.
He died. No, he recanted on it. You can check.
I'll double, but from what I know,
but that's one man, and he was a wealthy man, and he started to bring it. But listen, let's go right at the very beginning. Right at the very beginning, like what you Muslims got, you got Isnad.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Get me, bro. But so did the Christians. They have Isnad, and they had eyewitnesses right at the beginning. You memorized the Quran. So did the Christians. There was an oral tradition. The sayings were in such a way written that you would remember it, like today, modern day. Oh, it's raining cats and dogs. Like you know what to say. It doesn't mean it's cats and dogs. What I'm saying is they recite the Bible, the New Testament. They knew a lot of things off by heart, but they knew the sayings and the oral traditions and the white witnesses and all this grew from a community of people, and they knew what was the truth. And then you get creeping in certain things happening years later, like Gospel of Thomas. What date is that manuscript? Do you know?
I think it's second. I think they're dated by the original one, the manuscript. By the original one, because they say it's the. Sorry, do you want me to answer the question? Yeah. So they say that the way it's formatted would suggest that it can date as early as the 60th century.
Look at that, 6th century.
No, 60th. 60 as in
60
AD. Yeah.
Impossible. It's not.
Because you remember I told you there's 4 levels of writing. One is the oral tradition which you mentioned. The other one is collection.
Check Gospel of Thomas. Just check it for the argument. Check what date is the actual earliest manuscript of Gospel of Thomas. Leave it at that. But there are many manuscripts where they've taken off. There's the Eastern Orthodox have even got, for example, the Proto-Evangelion of
Peter.
Of James, I think it is.
Proto-Gospel of James, yes. Peter? No.
They've got Apocrypha, hidden Gospels, hidden things. They use them for evidences.
Then you just agreeing with what? You asked me a question on this.
But
you're answering.
I understand what you're saying, but what I'm saying is that the eyewitnesses to the eyewitnesses, the community there, they knew the families before, and they knew, let me finish that, because I'm wrong. So they remember these things, they put what was together, they had to have the councils, because many things people were trying to creep in. That's why, do you know what I mean? That's why Paul, when he went to Thessalonica, went to Corinth and went to the other, because they started to mix things up. So you're going to have these arguments at the beginning. But you're just picking one point there, one and it's like...
No, there's so much. You know, I'm just going by the questions that people ask me.
What he's saying is, to give you a definite answer, you have to go through the whole thing.
That's a synopsis. Now we're going to break. Every time you've asked me a question, I've tried to entertain.
No,
you've been patient.
You've got to let me go on the roll.
Oh, you still are finished?
Oh, no, I haven't finished. When I start finishing. This took for half an hour.
Yeah, I know. That's why. That's the only reason. I know. That's the only reason I'm holding myself.
People couldn't read and write in those days, normal people. So like you go in the church, the Orthodox church, for example. I'm saying Orthodox because all the churches there are Orthodox at the moment, So you look, you see all these icons. But on them icons you see them all around. You ever seen it in the Orthodox church?
Sorry?
Have you seen the icons and all these things is to teach the people the Bible because they couldn't read, this was the crucifixion, this was the resurrection, this was Jesus' baptism, this was, and you see the depictions of these things, John the Baptist, when he was beheaded. So all these things, the community knew what was going on there. Most important is something happened, the resurrection. The writings were like this, what you're saying. They don't mention more of the Christology of Jesus, being God or being divine.
Don't mind me, my eyes are going to go here, but I'm listening to you.
But then after the crucifixion, you're seeing John, it's more Christology. He starts talking about him being a divine. You know, people, the eyewitnesses there, they saw what was happening, crucified and back to life. That's why they died martyr's death. It's not like... today you could be brainwashed, for example, or whatever, you're being told this and this, and you go and do a martyr's death. There, they actually saw what happened, and they died for their belief, like the apostles did, you see. But these things were grown as a community. You're going to have, that's why we had the councils to define everything. And these critics, right at the very beginning, there weren't many critics like this, like majority critics like this to criticise what you're saying. Anyway, we can go on and on and on and on and on, but you know your critics, you've got to look at the oldest critics, look at the date of those manuscripts, and they're quite far after.
So I'll just engage shortly, again, maybe.
Carry on.
So you know you mentioned Sanad, it's slightly different from
Say again?
Sanad, Isnad, you said, Isnad, yeah?
Yeah.
So it's slightly different when we have an oral tradition, we have people behind that oral tradition, and we also have another science which examines the people in each of these.
So do we.
Yeah, so just
and
going
we call
back.
it holy tradition, actually.
Yeah, so
we don't call it man's tradition. Man's tradition is different. Holy tradition is different.
So this is
oral tradition. Sorry.
So I can imagine a community that are oral, even proficient. But remember, we're not talking about Jews alone. When Paul preached, he preached to the Greeks who are not oral, like the Jews are. So you have to understand, one holds an oral tradition, the other one does not. And plus, even if you look at the Homeric poems that we have, there's scholars differ as what the original form. Now the Homeric poems in Greek society were passed down by oral tradition.
Please forgive me 1 second. Is it okay to say something?
Yeah, of course.
Sorry,
I can't stop you.
Don't imply that the Greeks didn't have oral tradition.
No, I just gave you one.
The manuscripts, the New Testament was in Greek. The original manuscripts are in Greek.
Yes.
Some people say Aramaic. No, you will not find Aramaic manuscripts older than the Greek manuscripts. Now you read, you can see it's from an Aramaic mind though.
Yeah, I'll get to that point.
Right now, there were Greek-speaking Jews at that time, and most language, like English now,
Jews,
it's all Greek.
Yeah.